She teleports into my bed without warning, without clothes. Evan Turner was asleep when the air above his bed folded in on itself. There was no sound at first, no warning, just a sudden pressure like the room had taken a sharp breath. Evan stirred, half dreaming, his mind trying to place the feeling. Then the mattress dipped hard beside him. He woke with a gasp and rolled to the side, heart pounding. Someone was in his bed. He scrambled backward so fast he nearly fell off the mattress. His hand fumbled for the bedside lamp, knocking over a book and a glass of water. When the light came on, the room filled with a warm, yellow glow, and Evan froze. A woman lay where he had been sleeping seconds ago. She was unfamiliar, clearly not human in some subtle but undeniable way. Her skin had a faint silver tone, not shiny, just different. Her hair was long and dark, spread across the sheets like spilled ink. Her chest rose and fell quickly, and her eyes, large, reflective, and unmistakably intelligent, were wide with panic. She was also completely unclothed. Evan's brain locked up. He turned his head away immediately, staring at the wall while his face burned. This is not. His words tangled together. He forced himself to breathe. You're in my apartment, he said, carefully, slowly, and you're on my bed. The woman made a sharp sound, somewhere between a gasp and a hiss. She pushed herself upright, then froze when she realized where she was. Her gaze darted around the room, taking in the lamp, the posters on the wall, the small desk covered in tools and half-built electronics. This is incorrect, she said. Her voice was smooth but strained, each word chosen with care. This location is not on the approved list. Evan swallowed. She spoke English, not perfectly, but well enough. That somehow made the situation even stranger. I don't know what list you're talking about, Evan said, still looking away, but you can have the blanket, please. He grabbed the comforter and tossed it gently in her direction without turning. There was a brief pause, then the sound of fabric shifting. When he finally glanced back, she had wrapped herself tightly, clutching it to her chest. Her breathing slowed a little. Thank you, she said. This reaction is noted. Evan sat on the edge of the bed, keeping as much distance as the small room allowed. His heart was still racing, but training kicked in. Years of working as a systems engineer had taught him one thing very well. When something impossible happens, panic doesn't help. Observation does. Okay, he said. Let's start simple. My name is Evan. Who are you? She hesitated. I am Kael'thra, she said at last. Senior Transit Researcher, Fifth Ring Collective. Evan blinked. That sounds not local. No, Kael'thra said quietly. It is not. Silence settled between them. The hum of the refrigerator in the next room suddenly felt very loud. You appeared, Evan said, choosing his words carefully, out of thin air. Yes, on my bed. Yes, without clothes. Another pause. Kael'thra tilted her head slightly, as if listening to something only she could hear. The lack of covering was not a factor in the transit parameters, she said. On my world, it is not associated with vulnerability. Evan let out a short, awkward laugh. On my world, it definitely is. She studied his face. You experienced distress. I did, Evan said honestly, but I'm more concerned about you right now. That surprised her. He could see it in her eyes. You did not attempt dominance, she said slowly, or threat. I don't want to scare you, Evan replied, or myself honestly. Kael'thra lowered her gaze to the blanket wrapped around her. This transit failed, she said. It should not have selected an occupied rest surface. Yeah, Evan said. That part is not ideal. She raised her hand, and Evan tensed before realizing she wasn't reaching for him. A faint shimmer appeared around her wrist, like light bending around invisible glass. The shimmer flickered, then vanished. Device malfunction, she said. Severe. Evan leaned forward slightly despite himself. That was technology, right? Yes, you teleported. Yes, Evan rubbed his face. Of course you did. Kael'thra watched him closely. You are adapting quickly. I build systems for a living, Evan said. They break in creative ways all the time. This is just a bigger version. She considered that. Your emotional state remains elevated, but you continue interaction. That's called being human, Evan said. We panic later. Something about that made the corners of her mouth twitch just barely. She adjusted the blanket. I must repair the device, she said, but I require environmental data. My apartment is not exactly a lab, Evan said. It will suffice. He stood and walked to his closet, pulling out a spare hoodie and a pair of sweatpants. He placed them on the bed without looking at her directly. You can wear these if you want. She touched the fabric cautiously, as if it might vanish. You offer personal resources. It's just clothes, Evan said. No big deal. For you, she corrected, it is significant. While she dressed behind the blanket, Evan busied himself turning on more lights and opening a window, needing something normal to focus on. When he turned back, Kael'thra was wearing the hoodie awkwardly, the sleeves too long, the hood hanging loose around her face. The pants were tied tightly at the waist. She looked less alarming now, still alien but grounded. Better? Evan asked. Yes, she said. This covering signals safety to your species. That's the idea. Kael'thra glanced toward the center of the room, then closed her eyes. A faint vibration filled the air, too low to hear but strong enough that Evan felt it in his chest. Then she frowned. The failure is not localized, she said. What do you mean? She opened her eyes. My arrival was part of a wider transit cycle. Multiple insertion points were scheduled. Evan felt his stomach drop. Multiple where? She met his gaze. Your planet. How many? He asked. Within the next rotation, she said carefully, hundreds. Evan stared at her. Hundreds of aliens teleporting into random places? Yes, into beds, potentially. He ran a hand through his hair. That's bad. Yes, Kael'thra agreed. If my people observe repeated instability, Earth may be classified as incompatible. Incompatible with what? Unrestricted contact. The weight of that settled over the room. Evan looked around his small apartment, the messy desk, the unwashed mug, the quiet street outside his window. So my bad night, he said slowly, might decide first contact. Kael'thra nodded. Human unpredictability is currently listed as a hazard. Evan let out a breath and straightened his shoulders. Then your data is incomplete. She tilted her head again. Explain. You landed in the worst possible place, Evan said. At the worst possible time, and you're still safe. That counts for something. She studied him for a long moment. You believe individual response can alter systemic judgment. I know it can, Evan said. I've seen worse systems saved by one good fix. Kael'thra's device flickered faintly at her wrist, as if responding to something unseen. Then, she said, we must understand humans more quickly than anticipated. Evan nodded once. Good, he said, because you're already here. And somewhere far beyond his bedroom walls, a countdown he couldn't see continued to tick toward Earth. Evan did not sleep for the rest of the night. He sat at his desk while the sky outside slowly turned from black to gray. Kael'thra stood near the window, watching the city as if it were a living map. Cars moved below like slow lights. People walked dogs, carried bags, lived small, normal lives, unaware of how close something strange had come. The next transit window opens in 6 hours, Kael'thra said. If it is not corrected, more arrivals will occur. Evan leaned back in his chair. Then we have 6 hours to convince your people that humans are not a problem. Or to prove that they are, she replied calmly. He looked at her. You don't sound sure. I am a scientist, Kael'thra said. Certainty follows data. Humans are limited data. Evan smiled a little. We get that a lot. She turned from the window and walked closer to the desk. The hoodie sleeves still covered part of her hands. Your response last night was not predicted, she said. Fear was expected, aggression was possible, exploitation was considered likely. And instead, Evan asked. You offered safety, she said. That disrupted the model. Evan nodded. Maybe your model is missing things. Kael'thra activated her device again. A soft blue light filled the room, forming shapes in the air. Symbols moved and shifted like floating glass. Evan leaned forward, fascinated. This is the transit logic, she said. It calculates destinations based on energy stability and biological compatibility. And it ignores everything else, Evan said. Yes. On Earth, Evan said slowly, where you are matters just as much as how safe it is. A bed is not just a surface, it's private. Kael'thra paused. Privacy is an abstract concept. It's a powerful one, Evan replied. It shapes behavior. She watched him carefully. You suggest adding non-physical variables. Exactly, Evan said. Context, expectation, consent. She repeated the word, consent. It means agreement before contact, Evan explained. Not after. Her eyes widened slightly. Our system assumes survival implies consent. Humans don't, Evan said. Survival is the bare minimum. Kael'thra adjusted the symbols, adding new layers to the projection. These variables are difficult to quantify. So are humans, Evan said. But we still try. Minutes passed as they worked together. Evan explained human social rules in simple terms, public versus private, safe versus familiar. Kael'thra translated them into logic structures. The system resisted at first, rejecting the inputs as inefficient. Then something shifted. The projection stabilized. The flickering light became steady. Kael'thra inhaled sharply. "The error rate is dropping," Evan grinned. "Told you." Her device chimed softly. A message appeared in her language, then shifted into English. "Transit Council requesting explanation." She looked at Evan. "They are observing." "Then talk," Evan said. "Tell them what you saw." Kael'thra straightened. Her voice changed as she began to speak, calm and precise. She described her arrival, her confusion, her exposure. She described Evan's reaction, his restraint, his concern. She explained privacy and consent not as weakness but as structure. "These factors," she said, "increase system stability when interacting with humans. Ignoring them creates risk." The message paused. More signals arrived. Evan held his breath. Finally, Kael'thra's device glowed green. "Transit cycle paused," she said. "All scheduled arrivals canceled." Evan let out a long breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "So Earth is safe? For now," she said, "but the Council has more questions." "Of course they do," Evan said. She turned to him. "They wish to include humans in system redesign." Evan blinked. "You mean us?" "Yes," she said. "Your species compensates for variables we cannot perceive." Evan laughed quietly. "We call that improvising." Kael'thra considered the word. "Improvisation may be your greatest asset." The sun rose fully now, filling the room with light. Evan suddenly felt very tired. "What happens to you?" he asked. "I will return," Kael'thra said, "this time with preparation." She hesitated, then added, "and permission." Evan smiled. "That would be appreciated." She stepped closer, stopping at a respectful distance. "Evan Turner," she said, "your response altered my people's perception of humanity." "I just did what felt right," he said. "That," she replied, "may be the difference." Her device activated one last time. The air shimmered, gentler than before. Before she vanished, she looked at him. "Next time," she said, "I will knock." Then she was gone. The room felt very quiet. Evan stood alone, the morning city outside, unaware that the universe had adjusted its calculations overnight. He rubbed his eyes and laughed softly to himself. Somewhere far away, alien systems now carried a new constant. The human variable, the days after Kael'thra left, felt unreal to Evan. Life tried to return to normal. He went to work. He answered emails. He drank coffee that tasted the same as it always had. But every quiet moment carried a sense that something enormous had shifted just out of sight. He had not told anyone what happened, not because he feared disbelief, but because he did not yet understand it himself. At night he lay awake staring at the ceiling, half expecting the air to fold again. It never did. But sometimes his phone would buzz with messages that made no sense, blank notifications, timestamps with no sender. He learned not to panic. He watched. He waited. 3 weeks later, the sky changed. It was subtle at first. No ships, no lights, just a strange stillness like the air itself was listening. Birds went quiet. Traffic slowed. People paused in the streets, unsure why they had stopped. Evan felt it from inside his apartment. His wrist tingled, the same place where Kael'thra's device had brushed him during their last conversation. The air grew warm, then it parted. This time there was a sound, a soft tone like a bell underwater. Kael'thra stepped into the room. She was fully clothed now in a fitted uniform made of layered fabric that shimmered faintly. She stood still for a moment, letting the space settle around her. Evan stood slowly. "You knocked," he said. "Yes," she replied. "In every way that matters," she smiled. It was small, careful, but real. "You're early," Evan said. "The Council accelerated the schedule," she said. "Events moved faster once humans were included." "Good or bad faster?" Evan asked. "Both," Kael'thra said honestly. She gestured and the room expanded. Not physically, but perceptually. The walls faded into a projection of Earth seen from above. Lines of light connected cities, oceans, satellites. "This is your planet," she said. "As our systems now perceive it." Evan stepped closer. "That's a lot of attention." "Yes," she said. "Humanity has become a reference point." She explained that after her report, the collective had tested their systems against human behavior models. Every simulation that included consent, privacy, and emotional expectation ran more smoothly. Systems that ignored them failed. "It appears," she said, "that intelligence without empathy creates instability." Evan crossed his arms. "Humans aren't exactly great at empathy all the time." "No," Kael'thra agreed, but you are aware of its absence. That matters. The projection shifted. Other worlds appeared, smooth, efficient, quiet. Many civilizations optimize for order, she said. Humans optimize for meaning, Evan frowned. That sounds expensive. It is, she said, but it scales. The council had made a decision. They would not contact governments. They would not land ships. They would not announce themselves. Instead, they wanted something stranger. They wanted humans to help them design the rules of contact. Why me? Evan asked. You are not unique, Kael'thra said gently. But you are representative, calm under shock, ethical under pressure, curious without domination. Evan laughed. That's not how my boss would describe me. Your boss has limited data, she replied. Over the next hours, Evan spoke while Kael'thra recorded. He talked about mistakes, about how humans argued and failed and tried again. He explained why stories mattered more than facts sometimes, why rules needed exceptions, why being right was less important than being understood. Kael'thra listened. When he finally stopped, exhausted, she said, Your species is not chaotic. No, Evan asked. You are adaptive, she said. Chaos is unintentional, humanity is intentional uncertainty. The phrase stayed with him. Before she left again, Kael'thra made a request. When the time comes, she said, we will need more humans. To do what? Evan asked. To teach us how to meet others, she said. Weeks passed, then months. Small things began to change. Human technology advanced in quiet ways. Materials became stronger. Energy systems more efficient. Breakthroughs appeared without explanation, always just within reach of existing science. People called it a golden age. No one noticed the pattern, except Evan. Kael'thra returned often now, sometimes to talk. Sometimes just to sit and watch the city. She asked questions about art, about humor, about why humans cried at things they knew were fictional. Because feelings don't care about facts, Evan told her. That is inefficient, she said. Yes, he replied, and essential. One night as they watched the lights below, Kael'thra spoke quietly. The council has approved open contact, she said. In stages, Evan nodded. People will panic. Yes, she said, and then they will adapt. When? He asked. Soon, she said. But slowly enough to allow meaning to form. He looked at her. You sound human. I am learning, she said. On the day of first contact, there were no ships in the sky. There were messages, simple ones, shared across every screen, every language. We are here. We come with care. We will wait for your answer. There was fear, confusion, debate, and then something else. People responded, not as one voice, but as many, questions, warnings, invitations. The universe listened. Far beyond Earth, alien systems adjusted again. The human variable was no longer a correction. It was a foundation. And in a small apartment, a human engineer and an alien scientist watched the world step forward, not as conquerors or subjects, but as participants. For the first time, humanity was not alone. And for the first time, the universe felt ready. The world did not end after first contact. That surprised many people. There were no fires in the streets, no sudden collapse of governments, no panic that could not be calmed. There was fear, yes, and anger in some places, and endless arguments on every screen, but life continued. People still went to work. Children still went to school. The sun still rose. Evan watched it all from his small apartment. Kael'thra stood beside him, looking at the news feeds that flowed across the air in front of them. Human faces filled the projections. Some were excited, some were afraid, some were tired. They are louder than expected, Kael'thra said. Evan smiled faintly. That means they care. The collective kept its promise. There were no ships in the sky, no physical arrivals. Communication only, carefully paced. Every message reviewed with human advisors from many cultures. Evan was one of them now, though he still felt strange about it. He was not a leader, he was not famous. He was simply someone who had been awake at the wrong moment and chosen kindness. That choice echoed farther than he ever imagined. Months passed. The idea of aliens stopped being shocking and started being complicated. New words entered human language. New questions filled classrooms. Religions argued, adapted, or fractured. Scientists worked without sleep. Artists created things no one had words for yet. Through it all, Kael'thra remained close. She did not live on Earth, but she visited often. Each arrival was announced, each departure planned. She followed human customs with care, sometimes awkwardly, sometimes with quiet humor. One evening, as rain tapped against the window, she asked Evan a question that had clearly been waiting a long time. Why did you help me? She asked. Evan thought about it. Because you were scared, he said. And so was I. That was not logical, she said. No, Evan agreed. But it worked, Kael'thra nodded slowly. The Council struggles with that. I'm not surprised, Evan said. Humans struggle with it too. The universe was changing, but not all parts of it welcomed the change. Some civilizations within the collective resisted the new models. They believed empathy slowed progress. They feared unpredictability. They saw humans as inefficient and dangerous. A challenge was raised, not a war, not an attack. A test. The collective announced it quietly, almost gently, a joint project, a shared problem. A system failure in a distant sector that no purely logical model could stabilize. They asked humanity to help, not with machines, with perspective. Evan was chosen to be part of the team along with others from across Earth. Teachers, nurses, mediators, storytellers. People whose jobs involved understanding other people, not controlling them. They met in a shared space that was neither Earth nor alien. A constructed environment shaped by conversation, adjusting as participants spoke. At first, it was chaos. Humans talked over each other. Aliens paused too long. Meanings were lost. Frustration grew. Evan watched Kael'thra closely. He could see the strain in her posture, the effort it took to remain patient. During a break, she said quietly, "This may fail." Evan looked around at the tired faces. "Most things worth doing almost fail," she studied him. "You accept that as normal." "We plan for it," he said. The breakthrough came not from data, but from a story. One of the human participants, an older woman with tired eyes, spoke about a flood in her hometown. How people argued about what to save. How they lost things they loved. How they rebuilt together anyway. The aliens did not understand the details, but they understood the shape of it. Loss, choice, meaning. The system they were trying to stabilize responded. Variables aligned. Instability faded. The test passed. The challenge was withdrawn. Humanity's role within the collective changed again. No longer a variable, a guide. Years passed. Evan grew older. His hair thinned. Lines formed around his eyes. The world grew used to the idea of not being alone. Children born after first contact found it strange that anyone had ever thought the universe was empty. Kael'thra changed too. Her speech became more fluid. Her expressions more varied. She laughed now softly at human jokes she once only analyzed. One day, standing in the same apartment where it all began, she said, "I will not return for some time." Evan felt a quiet ache. "How long?" "Unclear," she said. "My work has shifted." "To what?" he asked. "To preparation," she said. "There are other worlds like yours." Evan nodded. "They'll need time." "Yes," she said, "and guidance." She hesitated, then added, "What you gave freely the universe now values." They stood in silence, listening to the city. "You know," Evan said, "we're still not perfect." Kael'thra looked at him. "Perfection is static," she said. "You are not." When she left, it was not with a shimmer or a sound, just a quiet absence. Evan sat alone for a long time. He was not sad, not exactly. He felt complete. Far away, the collective updated its core principles. Intelligence was no longer measured by efficiency alone, but by care, by consent, by the ability to choose restraint when power was available. Humanity had not conquered the stars. It had taught them how to listen.